Okay. Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah. How we doing?
Emergency retina surgery on Christmas Eve.
Okay. Still recovering.
Yeah, the way they had to fix it, so there's two ways you can fix a retina attachment. You can either pump gas in and then lay face down for like a week, which actually seems okay. Or what they had to do for me is called a scleral. They basically permanently stitch a rubber band to the entire eye to keep it in compression forever, which changes its shape, which changes its prescription. So my prescription has doubled. So like this is not because I can't see, but it's because everything's blurry otherwise.
Oh, gotcha.
Hopefully Friday I can update them and see if it works.
Okay. Well, good. Nice to see you.
Yes. Nice to see you again.
Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 17th at 8 a.m. Let's get started here. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Director Austin, if we can just start with item number 1. If you can take a roll call, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Coe.
Here.
Tehran.
Here.
Frost, absent. Korth.
Here.
Knapp.
Here.
Harrison, absent. Vogel, absent. Cloutier.
Here.
Schaff.
Here.
Moving on to item number 2, approval of agenda.
I'll approve.
Second.
A motion to approve the agenda was made by Coe. It was supported by Tehran. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Item number 3, approval of minutes of January 20, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
I'll approve.
Second.
A motion to approve the minutes of January 20th, 2025 regular meeting minutes was made by Coe. It was supported by Tehran. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Moving on to item number 4, we'd like to open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment?
Hi guys, Kevin Austin, DDA Director. I just wanted, before we got into the portion of the agenda, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge our new DDA board member, Zach Schaff. As you guys knew, I kind of updated you on the process of applications that went through November and December, and then forwarded those applications to Supervisor Korth, who we discussed, and he made the recommendation, the approval at the board meeting about a month and a half ago. So I just wanted to give Zach an opportunity to address you guys and to address the room if you'd like, but yeah.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Zach Schaff. I'm the resident board member, I suppose. I live in town over on Thornapple River Drive. Was a residential architect, so I've actually been coming to a lot of this stuff ever since we moved back. We got back up here 2016, so very exciting to see all the stuff that has been going on, and I've been on the Citizens Council ever since then, and so then when this opportunity came up, I thought it would be a very interesting experience to try to be more directly involved, because I'm very excited with everything that's going on around here. And as to this, hopefully temporary, retina surgery on Christmas Eve, so I'm hoping Friday I can get new contacts and can actually see again, because that would be fantastic.
Great. Glad to have you aboard.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome. Moving on to item number 5, unfinished business. There is none. Item number 6A, new business. Consider branding proposal for Beers at the Bridge graphics and streetlight banners by Director Austin.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Knapp, and good morning to everybody else. So if you guys remember back in my director's report for the past couple of months, we had talked with the Beers at the Bridge Committee in December, where we recapped the 2025 events, and then kind of were visioning for 2026. From that discussion, the committee kind of endorsed a look at the branding that we've been utilizing for Beers at the Bridge for the past 10 years. This will be the 11th year. And there was a recommendation by them to evaluate a refresh, and not necessarily a complete redesign, but what we can do to kind of move the brand forward a little bit. So I took that recommendation. I mentioned it at our previous meetings and said I was moving forward with that. But we are also talking about streetlight banners. So streetlight banners in the sense that we could be utilizing our streetlight posts for seasonal displays, for seasonal banners, and then also for one for the 250th, maybe a custom design to acknowledge the 250th of the United States. And so I did go forward with that. Our Parks Director, Director Deason, did reach out to me and say, hey, Music on the Lawn has always kind of been looking, or has had a similar branding that we are looking to possibly refresh. And he also was interested in maybe making sure that there was some kind of connective DNA between the branding between those two things, so that people know both of them are, really organized by the civic entity, by the township. So I really endorsed that. I thought it was a good idea, especially because we do a lot of co-locating our branding and our schedules and things like that on our summer concert series stuff. So following that, I did put out an RFP to probably 6 or 7 different firms, including some design firms, marketing firms, and also some freelancers. And I did receive 3 proposals back early last week, and I included that in your guys' packet right there. But you guys can see kind of the scope of services at least relevant to us, which is Beers at the Bridge, and also the streetlight banners, and then there's that portion for Music on the Lawn that's included right there. So the proposals that I received was from Wise Bear Creative, which the gentleman actually grew up in Ada. He lives down on Face Street, Jake Britton. Also Ivor Design, which is a local firm, and Serendipity, which is also another local firm. So we received those 3 proposals, one of which being extremely cost prohibitive, obviously. Not something that we were looking in that direction, especially if we were doing a larger, wider brand concept or rebranding, and then possibly. But I don't even believe the township's branding when they went through. I don't know how many years ago that was, but was to that extent. But so Serendipity and Ivor kind of set themselves apart in that sense. And Ivor has a lot of connective tissue with the rest of the DDA. They've done branding for ABA actually, and some DDA businesses, and I did include that some references in the packet that you guys have there. So they all demonstrated good qualifications and local familiarity, but Ivor Design distinguished itself through demonstrated experience, quality of work, familiarity with Ada's character and branding needs, and overall value. So their proposal reflects both strong creative capability and cost efficiency. So I noted where that would be coming from, the cost would be coming from in our budget, and a rough project schedule. We were hoping to get some of those materials by the time that we'd be dispersing some sponsor stuff, but I think at this point, we were hoping to be at this point probably a month ago, but we're still in a good shape to be able to kind of use that for the run up to our events, both music on the Lawn and also Beers at the Bridge. So I just noted strategic goal alignment there, goal 2 and goal 3. And then also the full proposal, like I said, is in the back there. So if you guys have any questions for me, this is my recommendation, and there's a requested motion there.
I think it looks good. I think that a little surprised that the one is so out of whack. I just wonder if the scope was lost on them maybe a little bit, perhaps. But the work we've had done with the others, I think is good, so I'm supportive of it.
Yeah, Wise Bear was, they put an excellent proposal. It had a lot of acknowledgement of, local identity and kind of knowing the area, had grown up here and everything. Did a really good logo for Newaygo, actually the city of Newaygo, which I really like their logo. It involves the bridge, a river, and like buildings for their downtown and some fish in there too. It would be cool. I think they might be something to evaluate if we were end up doing something a lot larger for the township, but not necessarily in this. So, yeah.
Is there this would be under the current budget cycle?
It would. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Was there money set aside for something like this?
There wasn't. No. So that's where I kind of acknowledge the two allocations, or the two the two funds that's coming from: operating supplies and services, and then marketing and promotion. Didn't necessarily, we didn't have something set aside specifically for this, but we have the funds there for that.
Sure.
I'm excited to see what they come up with.
And I think, Dawn, correct me if I'm wrong, you and Lindsay had mentioned that you guys would be, have offered your time to evaluate streetlight banners, things like that? Okay, great, thanks.
I move to approve as presented. Another one, motion to accept Ivor Design Services.
Support. A motion to approve the engagement of Ivor Design for branding refresh and streetlight banner design services in an amount not to exceed $3,850 for the DDA's portion of the project was made by Korth. It was supported by KNAP. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Item number 6B, Music on the Lawn sponsorship. Consider approval for Music on the Lawn sponsorship for 2026.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Knapp. So we did set this aside in our budget the past couple of years. And then also, again, it was in the first draft of our budget for 26-27 for a $2,500 sponsorship for Music on the Lawn. That is their Hometown Hero sponsorship level that they articulate in their sponsor packet. This is something that we've done, like I said, the past, I believe, 3 years at this level. This gives us the benefit of being able to be there as a booth for 4 concert dates. In Legacy Park there, they also call us out on the stage and then also give us the opportunity to go up on stage and address the, on average, maybe 500 to 1,000 people that kind of show up for Music on the Lawn. So I did think that this was a very worthwhile sponsorship last year. I think Shelley was out there with me for a portion. Margaret was there with the Historical Society, but came over with me. Tehran also came and stood with me for a little bit there. And it was a really good opportunity to talk to people, to kind of hook their ear and tell them what we got going on, and then also to get up on stage and let people know about upcoming concerts, upcoming events, public meetings. We had the town hall, we had the parking meeting, all that other stuff. So I think this does still align with our objectives and goals. I put that in the packet there that you can see. And it is my recommendation to approve this, and upon approval, I'll notify Director Deason that we are sponsoring again this year.
Second.
A motion to approve the $2,500 sponsorship for the 2026 Music on the Lawn Summer Concert Series and authorize the DDA Director to submit the sponsorship form with payment to Ada Township Parks and Recreation was made by Co. It was supported by Tehran. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed.
Okay, you guys can see on that 2026 lineup, I think I might have mentioned it in the report, but June 3rd, June 24th, July 29th. I did do 3 dates last year. That was my availability, but I'll be reaching out to see if anybody wants to go down there and man the booth with me. I won't be here for the July 29th one. I'll be on vacation with my wife, so maybe looking for a little bit extra participation on that one, but thanks.
Item number 6C, budget draft number 2, review and discuss fiscal year 2026, 2027, proposed budget draft number 2.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Knapp. So this is the second draft of our fiscal year 26-27 annual budget. This has been revised from some feedback from the previous draft from you guys, as well as some revised numbers that have come in. From management, from Township Manager Julie Succi, also Treasury. So I'm going to kind of roll through this a little bit and notice and let you guys know where the changes from the first draft have occurred. And you have any questions on that, I'll give you a little information on that, but otherwise I'll kind of roll through where we're at right now. And as a reminder, we have a third draft that'll be presented to you guys in March for approval. So just reminding us, I don't think I reminded you guys at this last, or for the first draft. So our two main funding sources are the DDA TIF, so the tax increment finance revenue, and also the DDA millage. So the millage was originally around 2.0, a 2.0 millage. The Headley Act requires that that millage be rolled back relative to the increase in taxable value. So in 2025, the millage rolled back from 1.9455 to 1.8941. Talking with Stephanie Borman, our township assessor, the larger the increase in taxable value in the DDA, the larger that rollback is required to be. So that was a pretty significant rollback from last year, and based off of development trends and approvals for construction and things like that that Stephanie has seen, she anticipates that this year will be another big drop in the Headley rollback, so maybe something commensurate with what we had there. But she did let me know that, because we've had this conversation a little bit before about scheduling out the millage a little bit and looking at that. She did let me know that it has the possibility of plateauing, in terms of the increment that the rollback goes back. So it goes larger when we have a lot more development and everything, and so there's a bigger drop in the millage, but then when there's less development, then it kind of levels out. She said that's probably a good time to evaluate what that looks like. So that was just good information from her on that. But looking at our revenues, we got the TIF revenue at $332,000, DDA millage projected 515, local community stabilization, special events, and then also the other revenues listed there. And so for estimated revenue total of $1,087,295, and then expenditures. So I'll look at some of these increases and note some of the increases there. So under wages, I did add $2,000 from our previous allocation as we continue to talk about a possible contribution towards a communications position. Township Manager Suchi is still evaluating the possibility of that. We think that's something that would be extremely beneficial towards all departments. And so that was split between about 4 funds for our allocation for that. And then going down to landscaping and beautification. So we decreased 10 grand from the previous draft because we're moving an irrigation repair line item to its own separate fund line item. So throughout the course of the past many years, the irrigation repairs that happened in the DDA, which were very frequent for the planter boxes and the right-of-way irrigation, has been covered by the township. So we are moving that over to the DDA as of right now. And so we did set that out as a previous, or as a separate line item, roughly about $15,000 a year for irrigation, but there's things that we can do to decrease the amount of repairs that are happening. That's, hit sprinkler heads and ruptures, some winterization stuff that happened last year, if you guys remember, burst pipe, and things like that. So that's being moved from landscaping and beautification down to its own line item. So I pulled 10 from that one. And then improvements. So improvements is what encapsulates the capital improvement plan. So all of our CIP items for 26-27, which we did put a lot in there. And that has increased about 35,000. I looked at the draft. I looked at some of the materials when you guys did the train bridge mural with lions and rabbits, which was a very good program that you guys had a really good experience apparently with them. And at that time, you did highlight the tunnel as a project for a mural. And they did put together kind of a rough plan for RFPs out to artists back in that time. And they did put out kind of a rough cost of what that would be. And that was right around $35,000 for the painting, the artist fees and all the things like that. So that's kind of a placeholder. Still hoping it would be less than that. But if we can get to that this year and we want to prioritize that, I just wanted to make sure that that was there. So that was the tunnel, the pedestrian tunnel mural. The other projects inside of that, and I'll talk about CIP, but I just noted irrigation project there on on Ada Drive, pedestrian infrastructure improvements, streetscape installations, right-of-way landscaping improvements in the tunnel. There's an increase in the community events. I did not put the Beers of the Bridge expenditures on the first draft. That's my mistake. So 65,000 on this draft. So that's an increase that you guys see in community events. Also contributions, we didn't depict our $75,000 contribution to the Connecting Community campaign for Covered Bridge Park North and South. So I put the 75,000 on there. And then also our numbers for FICA, retirement, health insurance, phone allowance, and things like that were provided to me by Manager Succi. So there's an increase in 58,200 under that allocation. So altogether, the expenditures total $1,421,950. That is a net of negative $334,655. I noted, similar to the last draft where we were net negative 120,000 or so, that this is pretty much not entirely, is largely composed of a capital improvement deficit, not an operational one. So, a roughly right now $400,000 capital improvement, and some of those other ones that can get us up to $500,000. If you remove the capital improvements, then we are not operating at a deficit. So that also, there's an unassigned fund balance of $520,000 that we can use for some of these overruns. So I know that was a lot, but those are where some of the increases were from. I think some of you guys were here for the first draft, some of you weren't. So if there's any questions, please let me know. This is obviously where we prioritize our work and things like that. So do you guys have any questions for me over the second draft?
The pedestrian tunnel, you're talking about this one right here?
Correct. Yep. I think, yeah, go
Does
ahead.
it seem, it doesn't seem like as many people go through that tunnel, like it will be seen for the cost. Would it be better served to do something with that new walking area over by the water? Some art over there? It just doesn't seem like many people would see it over there.
Yeah, I think in 22 when you guys were evaluating, I think there's 3 separate locations for the mural. I think it was both train bridges, so the one on Thornapple River, and then this one over here, and then the tunnel was included then. I would say that if anything, I think pedestrian traffic has probably increased through the tunnel since then, and will probably likely increase as the trail network, wayfinding signage, the pedestrian bridge, and some of our other trails that are connecting are going to be utilized. I'd agree. I think some people continue to use the sidewalk that's under especially River Point, and some of that kind of residential base comes through. That was something that was highlighted by you guys in 22. I figured that was kind of still a priority, and I know that's something when I talked to Kristen Wilds from the Historical Society, they were working collectively with some members of the DDA for a mural there. I think it still serves. I think when people go through that tunnel right next to the mural, it is a kind of a stark contrast and maybe a missed opportunity. So, if we did think that there was a higher prioritization for that visibility for public art improvements in the DDA and to kind of show people what we're doing, and we thought that there was another spot, I would take that into account. I think that'd be a good recommendation by you guys. I just think that there was some previous work that had gone in a little bit to the tunnel, not something that says we have to stick to it, obviously, but the juxtaposition of the tunnel and the mural right next to each other when you go through is kind of a stark difference. So.
Well, the other one, you actually get to see the river and things like that. This one, you're just looking at concrete walls.
Mm-hmm.
But
The other one wasn't finalized
yep.
back when we were talking about the train trestles and then the tunnel. And I know Kristen was interested in doing something historical.
Mm-hmm.
Historical content
Yep.
tunnel. But yeah, I'm open to seeing if that's a good possibility, because you're right. The tunnel, we go through it often riding bikes,
Mm-hmm.
but you're like that fast, right? And
Yeah.
Yeah, you go through pretty quick. I mean, the most traffic you're going to get is when the elementary school does the walk, basically twice a year. Because my kids go there, so we take them there almost every single day. So I use the tunnel all the time, but there aren't a ton of people all the time. But there's people going through pretty
Yeah.
consistently. But yeah, your big movements is when they do those walks and stuff like that, which happens 2 to 3 times a year, and then everybody comes through.
Also to note, some of our biggest events, Pumpkin Prowl, some of 4th of July, also Tinsel Treats and Trolleys. We've been coordinating with the schools and the church to make sure that overflow parking is available up there. And I think we noted there was quite a bit of foot traffic even in December from up there. Even though we had a trolley going up to shuttle people down, there was still quite a lot of foot traffic coming down from there. So some of our bigger events do generate that foot traffic coming down through there. So that's not an everyday thing, obviously, but and then also there is a new development that's being proposed I'm okay to speak about that, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. It's basically an extension, not an extension, it's similar to a development model like River Point, that is just on the, oh boy, directionally. It's on the north side of Veda Drive, where the old tennis court was. They've been seeking to do something for quite a long time, and then we recently had some meetings with them about that, which would increase the residential on that side of the street at least. So kind of reaffirming the growth in the residential base that would be utilizing that trail, not crossing the street, obviously, to go a different way. So.
Do we know the current year budget, which is only partially funded, because today's the second tax day? By next month, are we gonna have more of the final revenue for the current fiscal year to see if this available fund balance grows? In other words, you've got 520, but could it be 550, or could it actually be lower based on what the final numbers for the current year are?
Yeah, I do believe so. When I talked with Gina and in Treasury, we were talking about how tax payments were coming in for quite a few of those things throughout the month of February. So those actual revenues would have a more accurate number once we get into March.
We'll see that in the third budget cycle?
Yes, yeah. And then also we did have a projected growth document that we had given you guys last year that we intend to give you again, that kind of shows some of the specific funds and the projected growth over the year. So we will get that for you guys in March.
My only reservation is that deficit number is pretty large compared to the overall remaining amount in our available budget. So I'd just like to see the next set of numbers before I make any opinions.
Okay.
Yeah, we could always push the mural project or new Riverwalk. I mean, that could be pushed to the following.
Yeah, I mean, the capital improvement projects that I slated for this year, that's what do you call it, not aggressive, but an ideal that I'm hoping to knock off quite a few of them. That might be a large task there, but it was just things that definitely had come up along with things that were shifted from previous years. 20's basically coming up on the schedule, so that would be ideal to get those done, but that would be a lot, I know. So it's kind of if you're being really, really realistic, yeah, some of those things will likely end up being shifted, but it's good to note that, if we have that flexibility already or that acceptance that okay.
Right. And then some of the other things we've already committed to, so we can't change that.
Okay. If you guys don't have any other questions on that, like I said, this is just a draft for feedback. I will take that into account, and also make sure we get those materials for you guys for the March meeting, and then we'll have that for an actual motion for that for the March meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you, Director Austin. Item number 6D, review and discuss the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2026 through the fiscal year 2036.
Okay, staying on topic. So this is the capital improvement project. So this translates into the improvements budget allocation that you guys saw of that $500-some thousand. So in 26, 27, these are the ones that we have slated. Something to note different from last year is Manager Suchi requested that we do a CIP out 10 years, so out to 2036. So that Word doc that you guys see with the tables going all the way out, there used to be one table that you would see going over to 5 years into the future. Now it's a 10-year table. So you can see it's a little harder to project, once you get out to the 2030s, and so there's just some placeholders for things that I think will always come up. So sidewalk replacement, pedestrian infrastructure purchases, and things like that. But looking through our 26, 27, so kind of things that I'm recommending be included there. and feedback from you guys, things that we can shift if we would like, if this seems like it's gonna muddy the waters a little bit or distract. So the streetscape installation, we do have some remaining work for the benches, the slab work for those bench locations. That is still, we're gonna do that when it warms up. So there's still $20,000 left over for that. The irrigation repair on Ada Drive. So $400,000 is budgeted for this. So this is from Bronson Street all the way to Thornapple River. Like we said before, we kind of talked about that this is addressing vaulted surfaces, well, primarily the irrigation to all the planter boxes that are there. Replacing the trees, we determined that through our consulting with Bartlett that those should be replaced during this time. Replacing those with tree grates, so getting more walkable space on the street, leveling anything out there. So that whole project is roughly $400,000 with contingency, so I think it's like 360 some thousand without contingency. And we did, because we would be pulling that stuff up and we'd be evaluating, trying to get some good work done at the same time. We are talking about snow melt. So I did get that estimate from Moore and Bruges Inc. And I also reached out to 3 or 4 different communities that do have snow melt in them, as well as Jennifer Bonney, who has a lot of snow melt just right next door, and a very contemporary system over there. So talking about that project cost, and you guys asked for some more accurate numbers on operational costs and things like that. So total estimated cost for that is $960,000. Annual operating can fluctuate anywhere between $5,000 and $20,000. That would include some operating maintenance as well as gas and electric and power, things like that. Monitoring as well. Repairs are noted to be very costly when it does happen. So it's roughly $10,000 a repair when the system gets ruptured. And so if you guys remember snow melt in the construction of quarter to a half inch piping that goes underneath either pavers or concrete. That would circulate warm water or glycol, and that would melt the snow on select areas that have the system in it. So a big kind of hurdle for this would be requiring leasing space, or that we would lease space within a current property, or that we would find a public area or a domain that we would house it ourselves. East Grand Rapids, I talked to Ryan Russell over with East Grand Rapids. He noted that they put a snow melt system in their parking lot for 3 blocks, 3 city blocks, which is more than we would be proposing right now. And that's inside of a fenced area with like kind of a lean-to over it, and the boilers actually have refrigerated boxes around them. And it's secured and everything, but it's not inside of a property. That was something that we talked about before. But you have to have 24-hour access to this within a property. And then once you have it, there's obviously certain restrictions on development if it is housed within somebody's property. So 1 boiler or 2 boilers and 2 pumps, because you want redundancy in this system, would require anywhere from about 80 square feet to 200 square feet inside of somebody's property or located somewhere outside. We say that because we are not always going to be here, obviously. Otherwise, you could evaluate, a location here. So that was a little challenging in that sense when we were kind of thinking through all the contingencies on this. You would have to develop a legal system, a legal agreement for construction and restitution in areas where you had snow melt and people were developing. So once it goes in the ground, you cannot dig anymore. And that's a big restriction. I talked to Jeff Genova in Holland. The number one thing they'll talk about when you start talking about how great Holland is snow melt, and they're very quick to tell you. And they do have legal agreements anytime somebody is updating a building, doing some type of construction where they think they'll get close, shutting down the system, and then kind of making them file some paperwork, say that they'll fix anything that they hit. That was a significant kind of restriction. Just thinking about this stretch right here with the age of these buildings and what will likely need to be updated in the coming years with some of those buildings that we would likely see some construction that might require significant earthwork. So we would have to have that in place. So kind of a challenge, like I mentioned, prospective locations, the financing discussion for this. We do not have the funds currently for it. So I did talk with Manager Suchi. He said bonding is the most feasible thing here and could happen relatively quickly. But we would just have to talk through legal agreements and things like that about locations. So I have met with almost all the businesses or some of the business staff and personnel when I went through, and then I'm scheduling a meeting with them on the 28th at 3 p.m. to talk about this scope, get any information that might change this at all that I can relay to Moore and Brugink. But it's just something to note, the current cost for snow removal right now and ice mitigation, which is salt, in that stretch is about $2,500 a year just for that stretch alone. And we obviously do the rest of the DDA, so that's currently what we pay for labor and salt and things like that, roughly $2,500 for that stretch. So this was something I provided to you guys because we thought that if we should be evaluating it, it was not the priority construction that the priority was still repairing the irrigation under that $400,000, which was a project that you guys highlighted 2 years ago and had been on the books for a little while. So that is still how I would be progressing unless there was significant kind of instruction from the board and also from some of those property owners and business owners that the board evaluate snow melt. We'd have to figure out, those are some of the constraints on it, figuring out where it's stopping and if it's, why it's stopping at a certain location. Is it preparing for an extension in the future, things like that. So wanted to make sure you guys had that information. Do you guys have any questions on that? Any feedback on getting that information for snow melt?
I appreciate you getting all that information.
No problem. Yeah.
I'm surprised at the cost.
East Grand Rapids was probably the most comparable, besides for Right Build right over here, because they have boilers and pumps in mechanical rooms in almost every block. But Grand Haven has about a quarter mile that's pumped through their water treatment plant, and then Holland is not very comparable just because of its steam byproduct, and it's I can't remember how many miles, but it's a much larger system. So East Grand Rapids is probably the most comparable in that sense. 3 blocks they have. So
Are they happy?
they are, yeah. I'd say they do. I think everybody that has it, appreciates it. The cost savings isn't as much as you would think. Obviously, $2,500 for snow removal. Van Vossen, I did get really good feedback from quite a few businesses this year on Van Vossen's diligence on the snow removal, despite how much we had. Once those piles got big, they were ready to, they were kind of reaching out to us already to get those piles out of there. Walt over here, Jeff from Schnitz and everything talking about the removal. But there's also people that think that that's a really good option to mitigate that entirely. Just kind of have that system there. We would have to talk about where it stops and why. Because it would have to terminate somewhere. But I think that one of the bigger hurdles is where we would locate that mechanical infrastructure. So either taking up spots in parking lots that we might either have agreements on or ownership of, or trying to find someone. And that's part of my discussion with the business owners on the 28th is to, if somebody talks about a location inside of their building, whether it's 60 to 200 square feet, that obviously can get pretty costly, but that obviously brings in some other challenges with long-term. If somebody wants to do something with that building and now we have, a legal right or arrangement for that, limiting the construction or things like that. But yeah, people do like it. I mean, they do appreciate it, but.
Is AT&T always, how long are they gonna be there? Is it a good building?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard, that building is very, very critical to some of their fiber optic operation throughout, especially with the river. I think there's a lot of connections running straight to that building, servicing the area. I can't remember if that was John or somebody that told me that, but or Wesley also, Wesley Deason. From what I've heard from people that have more experience in this area, they're probably not parting with that location anytime soon. But yeah, go.
Jump in. So we actually asked the question because Supervisor Korth and I were having similar conversation. We reached out to their representatives, and they said, I mean, the cost would be more than $4 or $5 million, and realistically, they don't want to part with it. They said it is their hub for West Michigan.
Who knew?
Yeah. So we just, we got to ask the question so that we can at least have that conversation if it does come up, but realistically not happening. One of the things we talked a little bit about was there is a lot of right of way or a lot of space in front of the building. I mean, that maybe, could come into play in the future if we want to try to dress up in front of the building more. Right now we've got some benches and trash can, but there is still a significant amount of green space that if there was a desire to do something, and we even talked a little bit about the snow melt component, maybe that could go there.
How close do the boilers have to be to the system?
The closer the boiler is to the system, the smaller the boiler can be. So basically, if you think about the pressure and sending the water further it gets away, the bigger the boiler's got to get. So closer to this stretch would allow it to be a smaller boiler. We get 2 for redundancy, just in case one went out.
I was just thinking about this property when it gets sold.
That's one of the things that we talked about is obviously the township board still has to kind of discuss where they view this property relative to obviously the township hall, the new township hall, but assuming that type of restriction on either this property, the chapel, or that part would probably reduce the value of the sale or constrict the possibilities that we would have for development moving forward. People's talked about parking on that side, or they talked about selling that and recouping some value from it. That might provide some restriction, especially based off of what people want to do with it. But it's good to know, though.
Lots of logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what our foot traffic numbers are? We just talked about how not a lot of people walk under the train bridge.
Mm-hmm.
In that particular section, do we know what our foot traffic is compared to any other section?
I'd be able to kind of look that up with Placer. I mean, I think it's one of the sections of the DDA that people have wanted to, have accused the township and the DDA of kind of turning a blind eye towards lack of maintenance and things like that. I think it's just something that we had a lot going on, and the time that there was things developing, and this seems like a good time for us to prioritize it so people know. I don't think it's decreasing at any time. It used to be called Rex Anthony's, the Jam and Bean right here, does require significant upgrades for the next person, but they have been shopping some pretty important, or not important, pretty cool options in that building. So people are still looking to locate to make that foot traffic even more significant than what we get from Nona's, Schnitt's, Bike Shop, and Godwin's and all that right there. So I see what you're saying. If there's a different location, I think it's one of the only places that we would already be doing a tear up to to talk about, and that talking with Kurt Graham, who manages the system for Wright Build, he said it's only feasible if you're already getting in there. And I said, well, technically we would be. Right now, the plan, the other option is still just to take up the pavers that we need to repair the irrigation system, so not a full removal, more cost savings there. But regardless, if we're already impeding a lot of things happening, we're going to remove those trees and replace them, so that's why we're evaluating that location.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will say, snow melt systems work a lot better under concrete than brick.
Mm-hmm.
They do work under brick, but there's a lot more, beyond all the cracks in the brick and stuff like that, you have a lot more heat escapage, more likelihood to be damaged.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to put it in, concrete makes sense, hence why that's what they did down there. It protects it better and it works better. It's honestly, personally, I like the brick feel there. It's kind of a neat feel. It kind of calls back to what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it would just all potentially be concrete if we went this route. So
Yep.
there's that.
Yeah, it's a good thing to note. Our engineers said the same thing about concrete. I wondered. Jeff Genova from Holland said that pavers, they do almost all pavers there. And he mentioned that it was preferable. And I was like, I assumed based off of the way heat dissipates through surfaces that concrete was the preferred option because pavers have cracks. He said no, and kind of talked about that pavers are the preferred option. And one of the biggest things I recall from that conversation was that when water needs to dissipate as well on the surface, it can go through rather than having to run off to, you know, in a complete surface runoff into storm drain or something like that. But stamped concrete is one of the larger expenses in the current snow melt project in the estimate. Stamped concrete makes up a large portion of it. That's what was recommended. It's decorative. It looks like pavers because it's stamped. It looks nicely, but it looks nice. But it is a full you know, concrete installation. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Speaking of that AT&T building, since we know now that it's not going anywhere anytime soon, could there be a possibility of doing some landscaping? And
Facade.
it's a big eyesore for the township in the middle of the town. Like, could there be any enforcement to AT&T, or if not, maybe in DDA level to look into maybe do some landscaping or utilizing that area and kind of like make it look like disappeared?
Yeah. No,
Can we do that to the gas station too?
I'd ask if AT&T, why don't they allow anyone that lives in town to use their fiber network? Because they don't. We have a hub in the middle of the town.
yeah.
It's kind of interesting because, yeah, if you inquire, they're like, no, that's not a service we'll provide. It's like, but you run a fiber node in the center of Ada. Why don't you do that? Like, you know, Virgin's they were running fiber all the way out of Lowell, and yet we have a node in the middle of town that we can't access. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah, I think in terms of beautification for that lot, that would primarily be obviously their permission to allow. I think it's similar to other larger agencies and entities where they've probably said, well, if you guys want to do it, but I don't want to say that about the building itself, because obviously I think that they'll probably be pretty restrictive on what you would touch for the building. You know, I can inquire about that, about what exactly we could do or they would permit us to do, but obviously that would be the DDA using our funds to invest in the appearance of that corner, with probably no recouping those costs from them or anything. But you know, I think we'd be going out on a little bit of a limb, obviously, just because it'd be their property and everything. We don't have international property maintenance code to enforce on them. According to our zoning and planning. So we don't have that kind of enforcement capability on them if it was dilapidated or something like that, versus just strongly communicating with them about our preference for being upkept. So I think we would be isolating ourselves a little bit in terms of what we wanted to do with it, or what we were permitted to do. I could see landscaping probably being feasible, but that's obviously a little bit of a precedent, but not something that's unheard of, I guess you would say. But it's something I can definitely look into.
I think that would be a well-spent money compared to some other project that we're looking into it. This could be a priority. It's personal opinion.
So I will, I have that meeting with the businesses on, I've got about 7 participants right now on the 28th. I'll be presenting them the same information about snow melt. Like I said, based off of the previous project that you guys had quoted and everything, I'm still moving forward with at least with the current scope of the project being the $400,000 fix with the pavers and the irrigation system. But if you guys said that we should be investing in snow melt, I think, just so we're aware, that probably moves this project out. I was thinking of early spring as the best time frame to not impede foot traffic and people getting outdoors and getting to our businesses again, so that we could hopefully be wrapped up by the May and by summer. So whether or not that's a good schedule, I'll talk to the businesses again. But if we do snow melt, I think some of the locating, the scope, the legal, the financing, that probably pushes this into the next year, I would think, or maybe late fall or winter to talk about that.
Did you say that soon, though, is the time to address the trees that need to be addressed?
Yes. So, well, that's a good point. Is we would probably, if we did push this, we would probably prune the trees that are there, which is cost, and we have that for tree maintenance. Because we were holding off on any tree maintenance on those because we were going to remove them. So this project, basically by last fall or late summer, it had already been noted that those trees are at the end of their life. They would likely die from the repair already, the minimum scope of the repair. So we kind of held off and said, okay, let's not waste thousands of dollars on pruning when we're going to remove them probably in 3-4 months. So
So
if
it's another cost. to
yes,
consider, yeah.
exactly. If we push it, then I would probably recommend, based off of what those branches are doing right now, of what they're touching. So I would probably spend some money on pruning if we had to wait another growth season and everything. But quite a few of those businesses are pretty keen on getting those trees replaced, which was kind of surprising to me in some sense. But the calorie pears are invasive. They drop those things on the pavers that you've seen, the sticky whatever it is. The birds love them, and they love to process them and get rid of them once they're over your car in the township parking lot. So, but yeah.
Just one final real quick question. Would the DDA be expected to do a lot of the cost on the snow melt, or would the businesses be contributing to it?
That is one of the financing options we have at our disposal. The most feasible, I'm going to say most feasible, the quickest and feasible logical option is bonding. I talked to Manager Succi. That's a indebtedness payment for us every year. Rough numbers would depend on how much we would actually bond, but we can do that fairly quickly. But yes, in Holland and all those other places, or not all those other places, but a lot of those other places, it's a special assessment on the property. It's just something that, like I said, we have the ability to do a good portion of it with DDA funds, which are generated from those properties, your property as well. So it's kind of an acknowledgement of that we have the funds already to do some of this project. So maybe we wouldn't evaluate some of those other financing options, but it is open to us. Yeah.
Okay.
It seems like a huge tab for the return, and I think it might be something that we could talk about it. Like, as a town, like you said, so many constructions are coming up, or those buildings are gonna be remodeled, so it could be, difficult. So it might be something more like we can talk about it in the future. So I would say you might as well move forward with your regular plan. But you said something about April and be done in May. It'd be more better if it's possible start in March and be done by April. And April is the time that people start, the walk-in traffic gets actually more.
Yes, yeah, agreed. That's what the feedback from some of the businesses were. Well, that's, the bike shop is like our busiest time is April. That makes a lot of sense. People are getting the tune-ups and everything. They also have a back door, and so they're like, well, that's fine. But for those other businesses, especially Michiganders creeping out of our houses after the temperature goes up a little bit, surprisingly, April and May are higher foot traffic seasons. So, but yes, for the original plan or the original scope of the project, I was really hoping to be able to have it bid out and be kind of moving by late March and April. But the more we talk about other options, obviously, the more we're doing our due diligence to evaluate these options, but that kind of slides things a little bit. Major foot traffic seasons, major event seasons, those are things that I'm trying to avoid, but yeah. Okay. Any other guidance on the capital improvement schedule for 26, 27? If there is nothing, then I'll probably leave it as it currently is. And obviously it's something we'll be working towards, but, and like I said, I have additional feedback to be gleaned from the businesses specifically on snow melt and that project, which is the bulk of the money, the allocation there. So that's on the 28th. So there's no action requested on this.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you for that update. Great discussion. Moving on to reports and communications, 7A, revenue and expenditure report as of 1/31/26.
Okay, this is the revenue and expenditure report that you guys have requested, same format in the previous meetings. I have nothing particular to call out on that.
Item number 7B, DDA Director Report.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to kind of run through some of this stuff. Stop me at any point if you guys have any questions. This is the kind of the day-to-day projects that I'm trying to knock out, get progress on. So Beers at the Bridge, you guys, we just talked about the branding that you guys approved for that, looking to move forward as soon as possible. So I'll meet with that person this week, talk about some visioning and guiding, and then obviously Dawn and Lindsay, you guys will, I'll loop you in for key moments for the streetlight banners and things like that. Moving forward with extending contracts to 2 local bands, one Mellophobics on June 12th, and then another local band Prior Noon on August 14th. The committee did endorse us moving forward with them. They've already have a soft confirmation for those. So, and then we have another Beers at the Bridge committee meeting at the end of this month. I got to check my schedule on that, but right there, February 28th. Farmers Market. So Sarah was going to be here, but she had a little bit of an emergency. So I'll just kind of present in the actual Farmers Market report, present her report. So I'll just skip over that spot right there. World of Winter Wonderland Bridge lighting. So the light fixtures were removed. The garland was removed on all of our street lights and the bridge, and it's being stored again by Surface Renew. That's kind of under our current agreement with them, so we don't have to handle storage, which is a pretty good perk to utilizing them. So all that stuff is down. It was very well received. Parks Department received a lot of phone calls. We talked about the proposals that happened at the bridge. Overall, good year for that. But I'm going to meet with the the BFG staff to talk about the deer a little bit and maybe a little bit of after action on the installation. They mentioned that the deer have some significant wear and tear on them, and they require quite a bit of staff time to get them ready to go in the years moving forward. So I did allocate some money to evaluate some other lighted options. The deer are very passive. That's funny to say. The deer are very passive when they're implemented in the downtown. We've had some feedback on getting them out of the right-of-way because of the fact that they look like deer. Somebody said they even look like deer when they're lit up, and I was like, well, okay. So we might be evaluating a couple of other options, and we'll be cognizant of where we're placing them and everything. But I'll be proposing some things. They're not cheap in terms of the other options, but the more visibility we get down here, the more action with tinsel trees and trolleys, and also the holiday season. I think it's a good investment in some of the options we have. So, streetscape fixture update. Like you guys, I mentioned, we are on hold with the bench installations until basically now, where we're starting to thaw. So we're not thinking that this is the permanent thaw. Obviously, if you look at the forecast, this is the first fake spring, right, of Michigan. So fake spring 1, and then it comes back again. So we are still looking at those, that timeline. Ben Tomet was who you guys agreed to do that work. The work for the bench installations on that stretch of Ada Drive obviously is held off on the other ones we were going to install. So until we get a good significant thaw to where they can do that slab work. BFG was still going to put the tap cons, which are the bolts into the ground to mount the benches when they're in. But I will also be rolling out, now that we have some good thaw, rolling out our recycling bins. So we have those bins. We got some nice signage from Fast Signs put on them, and we're going to be putting them at key locations that the buildings, facility, and ground staff say they get the most trash production. So hopefully, we obviously need the community to make that decision to dispose of that responsibly, but Republic is going to handle that. Our services through our current provider, which they dispose of it at the library. And so we are going to do some public education. We did that in the 8 of you. We're also going to be putting it out on our social media and our website about the recycling program, putting it at key locations so people can choose to dispose responsibly with us. So the curb alteration that we had approved at the other side of the train bridge is still seasonally on hold because of that. Brian Carter is still our point of contact for that. Support local campaign. So we mentioned at the last meeting we had over $15,000 in gift cards that were purchased and being redeemed. So Valentine's Day, we had a lot of specials going out, trying to get some awareness on all of the specials that the businesses had running for that. And we're obviously going to be meeting and talking with Ann and everybody about initiatives going through 2026, try to make sure we keep up this momentum. Ada Drive irrigation, we just talked about, don't need to cover that anymore. The parking plan. So the presentation of Fishbeck's conclusion on the parking plan, that did have to be moved from February 11th. Thank you guys for your feedback and the poll that I sent out. March 5th was the date that you guys had articulated as being the best for you. So 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in Community Room 1 in the Amy Van Andel Library. And we will be publicizing that. It's an open meeting, but it is a presentation for Township Board and for the DDA for the results of that parking plan. So I've notified Kim. She's going to have that in her information as well for people, so they'd like to attend and hear that from Fishbeck. Tree risk assessment. So Bartlett is already scheduled the pruning that you guys approved at the last meeting for these oaks right here. There might be a slight change just based off of another request I made of them for dating, either dating some trees or holding off so that we can handle a tree that extends over top of Chris Chakai's building, which is just over here. It's one of the only trees that has a building as a target listed, so that could be an impact. So they're going to do a level 3 assessment on that one, but Bartlett is going to handle the pruning for the 4 trees right behind us, right here, and the black oak that you guys agreed to be removed is already gone there. The sugar maple that was here in front that was leaning, I actually, when I reached out to the road commission to talk about a right-of-way permit to close the road because it narrows down, they said, well, where's the tree? And so Bill Byrne came out and we both looked at the tree and he said, I think this is something we can do for you. So saved $2,000, road commission came out, took out that sugar maple. The inside, actually the picture of the tree trunk, if you look at it, just cavernous. So Bartlett knows what they're talking about when they see issues. And so they took that out, and then when it gets warmer, the road commission will come out, grind the stump down below grade, put some dirt on it, and we'll have BFG keep an eye on it to replant grass, and then also replace with an appropriate tree in that location. So obviously I did tell Bill, I said, you realize I will be now, calling you and asking about other trees that seem to be located in a similar proximity to the road. And he's like, well, yeah, okay. So, but good on them thank you, or gratitude to them for being willing to do that. But hopefully there'll be some other ones in that location. So, similarly, Kristen Wild's favorite tree, which is our largest tree right at the end of the covered bridge, tree number 288 in our inventory, that is a $60,000 asset in their report. Because we are doing 250th, I'm going to try to see if we can get a designation on that tree to see if it's over 250 years old. It's very possible that it is because of where it's located in floodplain, healthy dirt, but we are doing a lot of movement of said dirt around that area. So I'm talking with Kristen. We think it'd be a really cool thing to try to do a heritage acknowledgement of that tree. And so I'm going to ask Bartlett if see they can get us a good date on it to kind of set it aside as a heritage tree and maybe set up a little event or something like that. Maybe coincide with their fur trade encampment thing or something. So I just reached out to her about that. She's very keen on doing that too. So Citizens Council meeting is on Wednesday. That's our first one with our new board members, our new council members, 3 new council members on that. I'll be updating them on board actions. If you guys remember, that's a quarterly meeting with them. And pedestrian safety ordinance. So still moving forward with Bloom Sluggett. They are drafting the adoption language that we would need for adopting the Uniform Traffic Code and the Michigan Vehicle Code, which is what the recommendation is for us to be able to implement stop for pedestrians at all of our crossings. That's not saying that we are 100% adopting that. That's just what they are getting ready legally for us to do. We still have to evaluate all the repercussions of adopting that, but you basically are adopting, we're going to create your entirely new ordinance that would deal with these issues, or you would adopt one that a lot of townships have as well, Michigan Vehicle Code and Uniform Traffic Code, and utilize that, and then you can amend the language from there. So Grand Valley Metro Council was doing a lot of work as well, and where John and I are talking with them, they put forth some good recommendations on changing the language from yield for pedestrian to stop for pedestrian, but we would have to call that out in our own chapter to say that in Ada Township, you stop for pedestrians. You don't yield because the Uniform Traffic Code says that. And so we are doing that work, and we will be making the best recommendations both to you guys and then also to the Township Board based off of, what the repercussions are of adopting that, what case studies and things like that. But majority of that is stop for pedestrian language at all marked crossings, which if you guys remember 3 months ago, I talked about how we couldn't implement signage or, pedestrian safety infrastructure because our law in Ada Township did not require that action for the vehicle. So this is basically step one. But we put aside some money in pedestrian infrastructure improvements there so that when we do enact this, we can move forward with purchasing our own equipment and things like that and doing the things that the road commission would still permit us to do. But we just kind of make sure that we have the things in place for that. So still quite a little bit of work on that. But we would like to have that in front of the Township Board no later than April, so that if we can enact, then we can be moving on it in May, or a rough timeline like that.
I think that's great. Safety's our number one concern as a DDA, so.
I think it's the big thing that we hear at DDA, and one of the biggest things the Township Board hears as well at their meetings and their, and somebody grabs their arm and says something, so. Okay, strategic plan annual review. So I just checked, my scheduling poll only went out to a couple of members for this. This was not the strategic plan that we did, the full review or the full revision we did last year, but this is kind of an annual check-in on those line item things that we said we wanted to accomplish in 25 and revise for 26. So I'll make sure that gets sent out to you guys again. I know there's a lot going on at this time. There's a lot of joint meetings rolling around with capital improvement and parking and Notre Dame study and things like that. But please just take a look at that and see what we can do to talk about those are the objectives that you guys put forward and the ones that show up on all of our objective alignments and things like that on our pages. So, okay, that being said, I did attend, Notre Dame invited us down, and I did go down and attend their 100-mile coalition. So because they did a project for us for the town hall and also the urban plan, I went down and spoke with a lot of communities down there. Kalamazoo was in their 100-mile coalition, but Gary, Indiana, LaPorte, Mishawaka, Elkhart. Elkhart is doing basically A and B block times like probably 8 in their river district. And Jeff Speck was also involved in the layout of that one, which that's the gentleman that was involved in the layout of A and B block. So some cool kind of carryovers and tie-overs, but it was a very, very informative, very cool 2-day event down in Notre Dame, and I was very privileged to attend. So the farmers market report. So we did have the committee meeting on February 3rd. Sarah has almost nailed down the full food truck rotation at this point, which is pretty awesome to have right now. She's also revising some of the farmers market vendor agreements based off of best case or case studies with other successful markets and things like that, trying to reiterate a little bit more structure for the vendors so they know what to expect and they know we have enforcement capabilities on certain things that shouldn't be happening. Also, there was a good consensus to move to extend the time back to 2 p.m. From the 1 p.m. Date. We did have quite a few people showing up at 105, 110, and there's a lot of tear down, and it didn't seem like there was a lot of consensus from both the committee and the vendors that 1 p.m. had been great for everybody, considering that there was a decent amount of foot traffic that was coming between 1 and 2. So that we are moving forward with that. Sarah gave me her budget recommendations with some increases. Noted that $300 has been added for annual fees and memberships. And then also live music for the buskers and our licenses for that. Program supplies and services, that's for making sure we have money to implement some more kids engagement initiatives there. And then also we discussed the portable restroom because people were talking about ADA access while at the market because the only bathroom that we do utilize is in the basement of the church. But Mara actually agreed that we were able to allow people to go into their main floor bathrooms so that there is a wheelchair ramp to get up into the main floor so people will be able to access the church bathrooms as well. And we want to be good partners with that, obviously, with the church, make sure that we keep an eye on that situation. Sarah mentioned making sure we had some money for bathroom supplies and things like that in case our traffic increases the use inside the building. So, she's also going through MIFMA certification right now. So she attended the 1 day or 2 day conference that was here in Grand Rapids, and then now she's going through the classes in a small presentation to get her MIFMA certification. So, any questions, guys? I know that was a lot, but that was the farmers market report. And then if you any questions about that, take that. If not, I'll turn it back over to Chairman Knapp.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great update, yeah. Item number 7D, Township Department Head Staff Reports. Moving on to item number 8, is there any board member comment? Item number 9, public comment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Treasurer Moran. Just a public service announcement. Your winter taxes are due today. You had a couple extra days due to the 14th falling on a Saturday and yesterday being a holiday. Excuse me. And secondly, just to follow up to Supervisor Court's question, we settle with the county on March 1st, so you'll have a pretty accurate idea of your revenue from a tax perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, a motion to adjourn at 9:11 a.m.
I motion the adjourn.
A motion to adjourn at 9:11 was made by Tehran. It was supported by Korth. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Yes, indeed.
I did, I have a comment, yeah, I have a comment to make, so I'm gonna do it after.
Yeah, I mean, I leaned into it pretty hard, mostly to help my kids. So I was legit pirate for at least 3 or 4 weeks. Hat, shirt, everything. But I figured.
Yeah, that was